How's it going, you guys? So real quick, I wanted to make a video about the importance of potassium and its synergistic effects with other electrolytes and minerals. So particularly on a low carb or a ketogenic diet especially, you really need to make sure that you're supplementing with potassium. So a lot of people do not realize how hard it actually is to get the required amount of potassium in order for your heart to work properly, your nervous system, and your muscles. In fact, your entire body requires potassium in order to function optimally or even healthfully. So obviously a potassium deficiency can cause shortness of breath, that's a big one, anxiety symptoms, feelings, did I just say that? Anxiety, overstress, insomnia, muscle cramps, headaches, all sorts of problems can result from potassium deficiency. Obviously high blood pressure is a big one. So, but most importantly, it's extremely important for heart function and heart health. In fact, a deficiency in potassium can cause arrhythmias, palpitations, stuff like that. And pretty much many different diseases affect potassium metabolism. So potassium works in synergy with magnesium. Essentially, you need enough magnesium to help retain the potassium. And you need enough sodium to retain potassium as well. So if you're eating a low sodium diet, your body's not going to be retaining potassium properly. And typically low sodium diets actually cause more problems than they solve, especially if you're on diuretic medications or you're taking diuretics of any kind, actually. In fact, I feel like that's probably one of the main reasons why so many athletes they have heart problems preparing for competition, especially if they're cutting weight, because of electrolyte imbalances and taking diuretic drugs and cutting water weight. So, getting potassium from foods is actually very hard unless you're consuming large amounts of carbohydrates, particularly from concentrated sources of glucose and fructose like orange juice, which can cause other problems on its own, or bananas. If I was eating a higher carb diet, because I'm an athlete and my triglyceride levels and HDL are not going to be nearly as affected as an average sedentary person, I'd be downing bananas for my potassium because it's so much easier. Obviously, foods like kale are extremely high in potassium. The only problem is raw kale can cause so many different problems for many people, particularly digestive problems. And many people have problems with oxalates. And many people also believe that kidney stones are caused by oxalates and foods like spinach that have high levels of oxalates within them. So eating raw spinach and raw kale to get your potassium might not be a good idea, especially considering the fact that most people have a hard time digesting those foods. On top of that, when you cook these vegetables, you actually lose a lot of potassium and the minerals in the water. And so you're going to end up drinking the broth anyway. Now, you can actually get potassium from meat, but the only thing is the potassium is going to be lost in the drippings depending on how you cook it. So if you're making ground beef, for example, and then you're rinsing off the grease, well, there goes all the potassium and the water-soluble minerals, and a lot of the fat-soluble vitamins as well. So, if your goal is maximizing nutrient intake, you're going to want to make broth with the animal fats, and don't disregard the animal fats that cook out of the meat. But even if you eat all of the drippings and things, you're going to need to eat an unbelievable amount of all of these foods in order to actually get your recommended amount of potassium and other minerals. So even if you're doing everything right, how much of these minerals are even being absorbed from the kale and from the spinach and even from the drippings of the, animal foods? So not saying it's impossible to get potassium, but honestly, your best bet for getting potassium from foods is going to be from fruits. So what's the easiest way to supplement with potassium? Obviously, so a lot of people, they might go to a supplement store or they might go to their health food section in the grocery store, and they might find that potassium supplements are extremely underdosed, okay? So typically you need a minimum of 1 gram of potassium per day, so that's 1,000 milligrams. And optimally, according to the the World Health Organization and the government agencies, the RDA is somewhere like around 4,700 milligrams per day. That's a lot of potassium, and if you're aiming for that number, that's going to be extremely hard. Now, the best potassium supplements to actually reach that number are going to be found in the salt section, believe it or not. Or you can go on Amazon.com and find a salt substitute. The product that I use is called NuSalt, N-U-S-A-L-T, NuSalt. It's in a blue container. It tastes really bad, like metal, but you know, you're not doing it for taste. You're taking it as a supplement to maintain optimal health. And you know, potassium supplements that are in capsules, you know, they are required by law to limit the dosage to under 100 milligrams per serving. So you're going to need to take like a whole half of a container of potassium capsules in order to get the right amount. So the reason why they do this is because people who have heart problems, people who have kidney problems and diabetes can actually overdose on potassium from supplements, and it can be deadly. And there are cases that I've seen anecdotally and case reports in the scientific literature where people actually have had hyperkalemia, basically high potassium levels, because their body cannot excrete it properly. Now, so you should definitely talk to your doctor if you have those health problems before supplementing with potassium. But if you don't have any kidney problems or anything like that, you know, starting slow especially and taking about 200 milligrams at a time, and then slowly increasing your dosage over the course of like a week, you're unlikely to run into problems. And so getting a salt substitute like NuSalt, or if you want low salt, is going to be extremely powerful for maximizing your potassium intake. And so, you know, when I started supplementing with potassium this way, it was a game changer in my feelings of well-being, health, and energy. You know, other symptoms of low potassium are lethargy, you know, depression, high blood pressure, and specifically fatigue. Like you just feel so drained and tired and even dizzy. And weakness is a big one. It's also required for as a cofactor for many neurotransmitters and enzymes in your body to reach optimal health and well-being. So it's vitally important that you maximize your potassium intake. And when you're doing this, you need to make sure you also maximize your salt intake. Because again, if you're not getting enough sodium in your diet, your body will not retain potassium. And then the same thing goes with magnesium. You know, all of these minerals work in synergy. So constipation is another symptom of potassium deficiency. But anyway, I'm going to get going and continue on with my day. Let me know what you guys have done with potassium and your experiences with minerals in general and what's worked for you. Talk to you guys in the next video.